The much-anticipated Snapdragon laptops have arrived in 2024, promising to shake up the Intel-AMD processor duopoly. Lenovo have launched the Yoga Slim 7X Gen 9, offering a 3K touchscreen OLED display in a slim, lightweight chassis with a Snapdragon X Elite AI CPU, offering great performance and battery life. Is it all that's hyped up to be? Let's find out. When you first take the Slim 7X out of the optional sleeve, you notice the lightweight and slim chassis, starting at 1.28 kilograms or 2.82 pounds, with a thickness of 12.9 millimeters. You can comfortably hold it with one hand, also helped by the smooth rounded edges. There's a love it or hate it large Lenovo logo located at the center of the display lid, similar to the Huawei MateBook X Pro. The 7X comes in a cosmic blue. Depending on the angle of light, it looks either dark blue, black or light blue. One thing is for sure, it's a fingerprint magnet. Have a lint-free cloth nearby to wipe off the fingerprint marks. The military standard 810H military tested past chassis material is primarily aluminium stamping, anodized with sandblasting, giving a sturdy and solid keyboard deck with no flexing when pressure is applied. The display lid is also rigid with hardly any flexing, protecting the OLED panel. The small webcam lip makes it easy to open the laptop lid with one hand. Quick word on the Slim 7X sustainability. The packaging boxes are FSC certified and it uses dry pressed paper pulp as packaging. The system bag is made from rapidly renewable material, bamboo fiber, that's 100% bio-based. There's 90% post-consumer plastics in the power adapter, half in the keyboard and 50% recycled aluminium. To open the bottom cover, remove the 4 screws, pry up the latches at the center of the cover, and then remove the lower case. The LPDDR5x-8448 dual-channel memory is soldered to the system board, so unfortunately it's not upgradable. The single PCIe 4x4 NVMe M.2 2242 SSD is removable along with the 70 Wh battery. The WLAN card is soldered on. This review model has a 14.5-inch PureSight 3K 2944x1840 OLED touchscreen display panel. It has a 16:10 aspect ratio, 90Hz refresh rate, and a glossy anti-fingerprint glass layer. Brightness is rated at 500 nits in SDR operation, up to 1000 nits in HDR mode. Plenty bright for most environments, allowing you to comfortably work at 50% brightness indoors. The OLED panel is gorgeous with vibrant colors, deep blacks and smooth movement thanks to the 90Hz refresh rate. Using the function and R keys allows you to switch between 60Hz and 90Hz. Certifications including iSafe Certified 2.0, TUV Low Blue Light, Dolby Vision and Vesta Display HDR True Black 600. This panel is X-Rite factory color calibrated. Color gamut is rated at 100% DCI P3 and 100% sRGB. Color accuracy is rated at Delta E less than 1 on average. The OGS touchscreen supports 10-point touch and works very well and responsively. The 7X didn't come with a pen, but the Lenovo Position Pen is available to purchase if you need one. The display single hinge glides smoothly when you open and close the laptop. It's reassuringly sturdy when you set the viewing angle, opening to nearly flat at 170 degrees. On the left we have 2 USB 4 Type-C 40 gigabits per second ports with USB Power Delivery 3.1 and DisplayPort 1.4. On the right we have another USB 4 Type-C 40 gigabits per second port with USB Power Delivery 3.1 and DisplayPort 1.4. There's also a power button and a webcam e-shutter switch. Wireless connectivity comes in the form of a Qualcomm Fast Connect 7800 Wi-Fi 7, 802.11be 2x2 Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 5.4 module. At the time of this review, Wi-Fi 7 routers and access points are just coming onto the market. However, during testing, the Wi-Fi connection was reliable and fast. Bluetooth was also reliable with an external mouse or speaker. The keyboard on the 7X is superb. There's a slightly rubberized texture to each key, giving a comfortable, almost soft typing action. It has an excellent 1.5mm key travel on the 0.3mm dish keycaps. The keyboard deck is spacious enough to comfortably type on. Lenovo claims the keys are grease resistant, but in the name of testing by eating a carnitas while typing, the keys are stained with oil. There's a ubiquitous Copilot key for AI services and various function key shortcuts. There's no dedicated page up-down, and Home N keys, requiring the Function key and one of the arrow keys to action this. The buttonless glass surface multi-touch touchpad supports precision drivers. The touchpad has a generously large dimension, giving comfortable glide action with your fingers. The multi-touch gestures work accurately along with the integrated mouse buttons. During use, the buttons are quiet in operation. The 7X has 4 stereo speakers, 2 watts x 2 woofers, 2 watts x 2 tweeters, optimized with Dolby Atmos with a smart amplifier AMP. Audio playback is decent with a more than acceptable sonic fidelity from the quad speakers. They do, however, lack bass and warmth with vocals though, and don't get quite loud enough when you crank it up to full volume. There's no headphone jack, but you can of course use a Bluetooth headset instead. Here are some audio samples. The webcam is a Full HD 1080p 2 megapixel with an IR sensor and a privacy e-shutter. The video quality is nothing to write home about. Even in decent lighting conditions, there is heavy noise reduction and color reproduction is unremarkable. Windows Studio Effects does a good job with auto framing and blur in the background during your video conference calls. The quad microphone array supporting the webcam is very sensitive, useful for daily catch-up Teams or Zoom meetings with colleagues. Before we dive into the performance of the Slim 7X, let's take a quick look at the Snapdragon X family. The Snapdragon chips use ARM-based architecture rather than the universal x86 architecture found in Intel and AMD PCs. Apple introduced their own ARM-based M-series chips a few years back. ARM chips have been around for decades too. For the older viewers out there living in the UK, you might remember the Acorn Archimedes back in the late 80s running ARM RISC CPUs. Back to the Snapdragon chips today. One major issue with ARM-based laptops has been popular programs aren't designed for it, instead coded for x86-based PCs. Microsoft has used a special emulator called Prism to run non-native apps. Naturally, software firms are writing ARM64 versions of their popular software apps as Snapdragon devices grow in popularity. Here's a list of the Snapdragon X Elite and X Plus variants. Qualcomm's Snapdragon chips are targeting high performance at low wattages. At the time of this review, most Snapdragon laptops on the market have the X1-78-100 or X1E-80-100 chips. The top processor, the X1E-84-100, can only be found on the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge. At the cheaper end of the market, the X Plus chips will be used. Windows on ARM's application compatibility is getting better by the day, but expect some frustrations along the way. This review model runs on Windows 11 Pro ARM-based operating system. I had no problem connecting it to a domain network locally to a server or Azure AD cloud-based. The Epson printer software didn't install correctly the first time. I used Windows 11 to detect and install the correct printer driver for the ET3850. If you have an older printer, you might have a problem installing it. The latest version of Unreal Engine 5.4.4 works well with the Snapdragon. Version 5.3 crashed and didn't load when this came out. Adobe Photoshop, Lightroom and Premiere Pro work under emulation. Caveat: Premiere Pro is currently on the 23.6.9 version only and won't update to the latest 24.6 version at the time of this review. Therefore, if you have saved a project in the newer version on another device, you can't open the same project on the older Snapdragon version. The alternative video editing software DaVinci Resolve ARM64 version 19.0.1 is available and works rapidly with 4K 60 video clips. Blender is available on ARM64 version 4.3 Alpha. If you are a developer, there's still issues with installing Linux operating systems directly on the Snapdragon X laptop. However, you can get around this with Windows Subsystem for Linux or WSL quite happily. GitHub back in June 2024 announced ARM-based Linux and Windows runners for GitHub Actions are now in public beta. Docker Desktop and Visual Studio Code is available for ARM64. This review model has a Snapdragon X Elite X1E-78-100 processor based on the Qualcomm Adreno architecture. 12 cores running at up to 3.8 GHz. There's an NPU with up to 45 TOPS AI processing performance. Lenovo have added their own AI core working in tandem with the Snapdragon X Elite processor, dynamically adjusting power and efficiency depending on the task. Along with 32GB of soldered LPDDR5x-8448 memory and a 1TB SSD M.2 2242 PCIe 4x4 NVMe storage drive, the Slim 7X powers through most office or college tasks with ease. Everything feels snappy even when running on battery power. It will handle some light Adobe Photoshop work or video editing in Premiere Pro. Heavier 4K 60 video editing is possible, but exporting a 6-minute video will take around 36 minutes to encode. For our performance test, we set it to best performance mode in Windows and plugged the laptop into the mainstream testing. 3D Mark Speedway, 3D Mark Port Royal, and PC Mark 10 are not compatible with the Snapdragon ARM CPU. 3D Mark TimeSpy Extreme, Blender Benchmark, and Superposition crashed. Geekbench 6 runs natively on ARM. On the single-core test, the Snapdragon X Elite is close to the AMD Ryzen 7 7840S and just ahead of the Intel Core Ultra 7 155H. In the multi-core test, it powers ahead of these two CPUs with ease. Cinebench 2024 also runs natively on ARM. In single-core testing, it came in with a score of 107 ahead of the pack. An excellent score of 988 in the multi-core testing kept it ahead of the 7840S and 155H. 3D Mark TimeSpy runs on the Prism emulation with the Snapdragon. This shows a poor score of 1,899 compared to 3,280 and 3,909 for the AMD and Intel processors. There's a much better graphical showing with the Adreno GPU in the 3D Mark Night Raid benchmark, which it can run on ARM64. This shows it's not far behind the AMD 780M and Intel Arc 8 core. Here's a list of the benchmarking results for reference. In general benchmarking scores, the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite X1E-78-100 reveals very decent CPU performance figures. It's close to the AMD Ryzen 7 7840U, Intel Core Ultra 7 155H, and the Apple M3 chip. Quick CPU didn't run on the ARM64 OS. Plugged in balance mode or intelligent cooling idle, CPU temperature is 44.2 Celsius. The fans stay silent at less than 30 decibels. The keyboard deck temperature is between 31 to 32.5 Celsius. Plugged in balance mode video playback, CPU temperature is 44.7 Celsius. The fans stay silent at less than 30 decibels. The chassis temperature is around 32.9 Celsius by the top vents, virtually cooled to the touch. Plugged in best performance running Cinebench 2024 benchmarking. CPU temperature hits 53.3 Celsius. Fans soon spin up to 55 to 56 decibels, average in terms of noise levels. 43 Celsius at the top of the vents, 37 Celsius at the center of the keyboard deck. On battery mode, balance mode, or intelligent cooling, typing on Google Docs, CPU temperature is 56 Celsius. The fans remain silent throughout. Temperatures at the top vents are around 31 Celsius and 29 Celsius at the center of the keyboard deck. On battery mode extreme performance running Cinebench 2024 benchmarking, CPU temperature hits 59 Celsius. The fans spin up within seconds to 53 to 54 decibels, and temperatures hit 42 Celsius at the vents, 36 Celsius at the center of the keyboard deck. Graphics is taken care of by the Qualcomm Adreno X1-85 iGPU. It has 1,536 unified shaders that run up to 1,250 MHz, along with 3.8 teraflops. Power consumption is around 30 watts. While faster than the aging Intel Iris Xe, it's no match for the benchmark of the AMD Radeon 780M or the newer Intel Arc 8-core iGPUs. Newer graphical driver releases might eke out more performance. Watch your space, as they say. Despite all the hype, the Snapdragon X Elite is not designed for playing games on. For starters, gaming support for many titles is either hit or miss. In testing, more misses. A lot of the titles don't currently run on ARM64. Here's a list of some titles that don't run. The titles that did manage to run will only play on 1080p low settings. Here are some gaming samples. The Yoga Slim 7X is targeted at users who use email, web, or Microsoft 365 apps. streaming YouTube videos, and some video conferencing. Similar to MacBook Air users, for users who use professional applications like Adobe Photoshop or development tools, it can be hit and miss depending on ARM64 support. For a user who wants to run Blender or 4K video editing and play the latest AAA games, the Snapdragon X Elite won't be powerful enough. Lenovo have provided several security features on the 7X. There's no fingerprint reader, but there's an IR camera for Windows Hello facial recognition, a webcam e-shutter toggle switch on the side of the laptop, and a Microsoft Pluton TPM 2.0 enabled security encryption chip. Inside is an integrated 70 watt-hour battery that supports Rapid Charge Express, giving 3 hours of runtime with a 15-minute charge. Running 1080p video playback with 40% brightness, 90Hz and best power efficiency mode, the battery life was 16 hours, remarkable for a laptop with an OLED display. The same settings but with balance mode, the battery life was 14.5 hours. In balance mode, 40% brightness using web-based work, Google Docs, YouTube, downloading files, etc. In other words, general day-to-day work. Battery life was around 10 to 12 hours. Again, amazing considering we have a power-sapping OLED display. Under heavy load, expect 1 to 2 hours at most. The Yoga comes with a 60-watt USB-C AC adapter supporting Power Delivery 3.0. The good, the bad, and the really bad. Lightweight marvel. The 7X has a slim, lightweight but solid chassis design, making it easy to grab and run between classes or office meetings. OLED display. For those who follow my channel, I've been getting used to the beautiful OLED display from the Lenovo Yoga range, and the 7X is no exception. A stunning 3K color-accurate 14.5-inch display, and the Cherry has a practical touchscreen. Eat cake, MacBook Air. Long battery life. For those following the Snapdragon tech news, a lot has been made of the immense battery life that is possible from the X Elite CPU. In day-to-day office or college usage, the 7X does have a very good battery life, especially on an energy-hungry OLED display. Good performance. In the past, you either sacrifice good battery life for performance or vice versa. The Snapdragon 7X gives you both. CPU performance is virtually on par with the Intel Core Ultra 7 155H and AMD Ryzen 7 8840U from the competition. Decent price. This review model is priced at £1,125 plus taxes, or $1,477. I managed to grab one at pre-launch for $910 or $1,195 with a business discount and cashback. Compared to the Snapdragon competition, the Yoga Slim 7X has a really competitive price tag, missing IOs. In a move similar to Apple, the minimalistic approach to the ports in the 7X is a tad disappointing. No SD card reader, no audio jack or legacy USB Type-A port. Average Adreno. The one big weakness of the new Snapdragon processor is iGPU. It's only slightly better than the Intel Iris Xe, which is embarrassing to be associated with. In fairness, this is Qualcomm's first attempt when Intel and AMD have been in this game for decades. It will be interesting to see what they can do with the second generation of the Snapdragon iGPUs. Compatibility apps. For Windows users, the Snapdragon-powered 7X will come as a shock when applications and games are not supported or don't work correctly, leaving a frustrating first impression of an otherwise great laptop. It's still early days. Software providers will be working on ARM64 versions of their favorite apps. If you were in the market for a Snapdragon X Elite 14-inch laptop, what other laptops would you be looking at? In no particular order, here's some to consider. HP EliteBook Ultra G1Q14. Asus VivoBook S15 OLED, Lenovo ThinkPad T14S Gen 6, Acer Swift 14 AI 2024, HP OmniBook X14, Dell Latitude 7455 2024, Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge 14, Apple MacBook Air 13-inch M3 chip. The Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X has all the hallmarks of a fantastic modern ultrabook, solid and robust aluminium chassis and a lightweight slim body, a typical comfortable Lenovo keyboard and large touchpad for hours of use. Talking of which, the battery life is excellent considering it's powering a gorgeous 3K 90Hz OLED touchscreen display. Even with the lowest spec Snapdragon X Elite processor, application performance is really good, up there with the current crop of CPU stars from Intel and AMD. The Adreno iGPU is fine for office-based work, but it's definitely not for playing games. ARM64 applications are getting better with each week as manufacturers launch new Snapdragon laptops on the market. Some emulated apps work well while others not so well or don't even run. Do your research before buying a Snapdragon laptop. The Yoga Slim 7X will fit perfectly for some users with a lightweight laptop, great battery life and a very competitive price compared to the competition. For others, there might be better offerings, especially in the light of the new Intel Lunar Lake and AMD Strix Point processor processors coming out. However, you have to commend Qualcomm for stirring up the CPU duopoly that you could argue was getting stale. What do you guys think? Leave your comments and discuss below. Hope you guys enjoyed the review of the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X Gen 9 laptop. Please click on the like button if you enjoyed this review video and subscribe if you would like to watch more of our tech videos. Thanks for watching. Cheers.